All right. Hey, here we are again, everybody.
Hey,
We have
Donnie.
returned back. Hey. So you guys,
Sorry.
we just my brother and I could sit here for 2 hours and not say one word that's an original thought.
Mm.
Nope.
All movie lines from the 80s. So
And chuckle
um,
endlessly.
yeah, giggle to ourselves.
Yes.
Although I'll give you guys a little quick funny one. Like my boss is very much like this, and so today we were talking about this meeting we have coming up, and there's a bunch of us in the meeting, and I can't remember why he said it, but he goes, "Woman, where's my super suit?" And I knew exactly what he was saying. I said,
We're talking about the greater
"Where's your
good.
super suit, the greater good. I'm the greatest good."
You're never going to know.
So he and I go on for 5 minutes, and the rest of them are looking at us like we got two heads. It was very funny, very funny. So anyway, all right. So here we are again, episode 7. We are close to the launch of the season. Lots of trepidation. The good news is we're still undefeated. 3 of the 4 of us will be there for the first game. We'll be down on the field. We'll see if we can capture some video from the field that we could share in the next film. We'll get preseason on the field. Field pass action. Paco will be out in the water somewhere trying to watch the game somehow. So we don't know how that's going to work for him, but he's going to try. All right. So tonight we will discuss. Let's see. We'll start with what's in the box. The Giants have stepped up and sent us a 100th anniversary package or season package for us season ticket holders. So I will unveil what's in it.
You have won a Ronald McDonald's hat.
That's right, Donald hat. So that's another inside. That's an inside joke. That's another story.
Ask your mom about that joke.
Yeah, We'll count down the 20 to 1, commenting on players along the way, and then we'll finish with our optimistic season predictions.
Oh, then don't ask me.
We are all so happy. So I have not opened this yet. I did see pictures of it. I'm going to read what it says inside. So the 2024 New York Giants season will be one of distinction as we celebrate our historic milestone, 100 seasons.
Being the important part of that term.
Right. We would not be the New York Football Giants without the support we have received from you, our season ticket members. Your unwavering support, tell me about it, of our franchise has motivated us, sustained us, and encouraged us to strive for greatness every year. Okay, this you're striving for.
Yeah.
Enclosed is your 100 season commemorative gift, 4 replica Super Bowl championship rings. We're going to have to divide those up. A custom designed 100 season commemorative ticket. Okay, now that we don't have tangible tickets,
that's nice.
I think it's funny they're giving me a ticket. We look forward to welcoming you to MetLife Stadium this season, and thank you for your continued support. Signed by John Mara, President and CEO, Steve Tisch, Chairman and Executive Vice President. So,
wow.
I got to tell you.
No free medium Pepsi? No free medium Pepsi for the pain?
It's pretty slick, man.
That doesn't suck.
Pretty slick.
That's sick.
It's a nice box. We're going to have to
figure
figure this out.
They put some thought
The
to
beauty
that.
is, Pop had 4 kids, and there's 4 rings. So I'm sure we can equitably decide how we
fight to the death.
These.
Well, which one of you get the 2011
Leroy!
one of you had one of
David
you.
Leroy.
Yeah, one of
We
you.
are not-
2011.
We are not going to do the Dark Knight. We've got one position, so we're having tryouts. So
I think we should do Festivus.
Do that. And then this is actually really cool. So the back of it is like the original ticket. Pretty cool. So and here's
That's cool.
It's in
Glass.
Yeah, I give him credit. Well done, Giants. Well done. Let's give him a golf clap.
Better than a medium Pepsi.
That's worth $20,000, right?
Better than medium Pepsi.
So
They should have just thrown a coupon in for medium Pepsi. That would have
I'll
really
see if
made
there's
it.
coupons in the bottom of the box. Maybe there are, but yeah. So
I've
we will
got
figure out-
85 coupons.
I've got 85 coupons. Sorry, now it's going to be like a thing, the whole show.
I got this out.
whole
I'm in a good
show.
mood. I'm just rolling with it.
All right. Okay, let's move on. So let's talk 20 to 11. We'll go from 20 down, right? I don't really have comments on Jimmy Patton or Ken Strong. Does anybody have comments on them? I mean, I'm sure they were great players. Neither was a kicker, so that's a good thing. Okay.
Before my time.
But
Yeah, a little before.
let's go to Bavaro. So, Steven, give me some of your views of Mark Bavaro over the years.
Love the guy. One of my favorite players. One of the guys sort of like you had to be a Giants fan to get him kind of thing. Like I'm sure the rest of the NFL had no idea who he really was outside of a couple moments here and there. But top 20 all time seems a little high. Like as far as popularity, absolutely.
Really?
Okay.
As far as popularity and like mystique, yes. As far as actual play, I don't know. Because he was only good for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, in my opinion, I guess.
And he went to the Eagles.
That's a
Oh, he's the original
lifetime in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he left the Giants, went to the Eagles.
You know, I mean, he's got a special place for our uncles who grew up diehard Irish Notre Dame fans. So he's a double whammy. He's an Irish and Golden Domer and a Giant. I don't know. I loved him. I think he's deserving of being this high in terms of, I think the impact he had on the team, the weapon he became. Like, he was, I'm not going to put him in the class like a Travis Kelce now because they do it so differently. But in terms of giving Sims an outlet that was reliable, but then could also just love to block and destroy people.
True, very true.
I mean, he was impressive that way. Like that story Sims tells, and I've heard him tell it many times, where Bavaro, who hardly ever said anything, just, end of a game, they're running the clock down. They're like, we're just going to do a running play. And Sims calls it. And Bavaro kind of goes, He's like, Mark, you got a problem with that call? Yeah, I want to run it that way because I want to hit that guy one more time. I mean, it's just so classic. So classic. So
if I may impart some statistics, because I didn't look this closely, I'm actually curious.
Go.
So he had 2 good seasons from just talking catches and things like that. He had one 1,000-yard season, and that was 86. He had 1,001 yard. And then in 87, he had 867. Other than that, he had 500, 300, and 400.
How many touchdowns a year?
Let's see. TDs. 4. He only had 4 in 86, 4 in 85, 8 in 87, then 4, 3, 5.
Yeah, I think before you put too much judgment, you should normalize them against the tight ends of that era because there weren't a lot of tight ends getting 1,000, right? It wasn't until kind of the next generation with Tony Gonzalez where that all of a sudden became like big time. So,
this is true.
But
I'm not thinking of it. Like I said, as far as mystique goes, he absolutely deserves to be in the top 20. Everybody who's a Giants fan knows Bavaro. So in that regard, I got no problem with it. It's just like when I go statistics, I don't necessarily know that the Giants have that many people on offense that have great statistics, at least a tight end, to really push him out. But that's all.
All right, let's go to a more current guy. So I'll give Lucas a chance to comment first. But what do you think of first when you think of our man Amani?
Obviously, I always remember the 2007 game against the Cowboys where Eli just threw a little dump-off pass in the divisional round. Me and you were watching on the couch and we were just like, no one's tackling him. Oh, he just goes away. And I was like, we have a chance in this game, Maybe this might
I can't
happen.
remember who threw the block for him. It was the fullback, I think.
Hedgecock threw the block. He blocked like 3 guys with one block. And I wouldn't say he was known for his lightning speed at that point of his career, but, no one caught him. And then he had a sick catch against the Packers, like just dragging his feet as he's coming out of bounds. I always remember he had
in the freezing cold too.
He had some sick feet and awesome hands.
That hurt to watch.
Yeah, he has all of the major statistical Giants receiving records.
I think so. I think so.
Number 1 in everything, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, big fan of Amani. How about you, Paco? Any Amani thoughts?
Just like us watching games on Sunday and hearing the horrible Arnold impersonations of the Tuma, like just we're watching Tuma, like just that was good memories. But he was definitely a smooth operator for sure. It was definitely cool to see. I feel like from my era at least, one of the better toe tappers when it came to like sideline or end zone, getting the feet down. He was just like he could pause in time and get his feet down. So it was always cool seeing, he really, I think he elevated Eli's game when he was a lot younger because he had that safety blanket he could go to. So yeah, I think he's very deserving.
Yeah, well, and I always love the Chris Berman well-dressed Amani Toomer, right? So, but when I think of Amani, two things come to mind. One is he was the one guy that didn't have a bad injury, that had longevity, that stayed healthy. That's why he holds all the records, right? Could you imagine if an OBJ or a Victor Cruz or a Hakeem Nicks, right, could have played as long as Amani did? And there's something to be said for that, for being that available. But the other was a game I missed. It's one of my bigger regrets. So whatever year it was, I think it was the Broncos back-to-back Super Bowl year. So their second year, they're 15-0. We are lame. Kent Graham's our quarterback, and we suck. And we suck. And my buddy Kevin, who lived a lot closer, he wanted to go to the game. I'm like, you know what? I'll just save the tickets. It's not going to matter. They're going to suck. And I mean, we beat them. We stopped basically an undefeated season, and it was Amani catching a pass, in the right corner of the opposite end zone that ended it. So yeah, that's one game, man. I wish I was at that one because that would have been fun.
Side note. Pete and I were at the Ravens-Vikings game where there were back-to-back-to-back kickoff returns, and we watched the end of that game.
Day. That's right, on that day.
We watched the end of that game in the stands at Ravens Stadium.
Yeah, you guys were in Baltimore. That's right. Yeah.
Here's something interesting about Amani's career, though, with that. I don't think it would even happen now. In the first 3 years, total, he had 44 receptions combined in his first 3 years in the NFL.
Wow. That's time to develop.
And then
you don't get that anymore.
In 96 and 98, he had 44 total receptions. And then in 99, he had 80.
So almost doubled it.
Big jump.
And then from that point on, he was all the way up. He was the man for the next 6 years, 7 years. He was the man, and then it tapered off a little bit. But think about that. When was the last time you heard of a receiver who was obviously like a number 3 receiver at best, and then all of a sudden he's a number 1 for 7 straight years? That's crazy. That would never happen now.
It is.
No.
It is for sure.
Everybody gave up on him.
Yeah, it's get off the pot kind of time now. So
practice squad or Canada.
Well, put it this way: if he made that jump, it would have been for another team.
Right.
Yeah. That's what happened. You trade him, and all of a sudden now he's special. So,
and
right, moving.
He and Bavaro wore the same jersey number the first 2 years. He was 89.
Oh, now that I didn't know. That's a nice little tidbit. All right, moving down the list. Our man Tiki. This time I'll let Paco go first. Give me some Tiki thoughts.
Just the pure, first thing that comes to my mind is just the domination of the Redskins. I mean, all his 200-yard games against the Redskins. Yeah. I mean, I remember my parents had went to the one in D.C. where he went for over 200, and I mean, I just remember watching. I think it was, I don't know if it was a Sunday night or a Monday night game, but just it was so funny to watch him with the whole high and tight thing. Everybody thought it was lame and he looked real weird, but it just to think that just him changing that and his fumble statistics after that was just insane. So I always think of the high and tight and just the 200-yard games he had, but overall good running back. Didn't like how he talked about the Giants after his career a little bit, but then I think he manned up to some of that stuff, and he's one of the spokespersons for the Giants now. So it's cool to see him come full circle and kind of be on our side again. So
yeah, I think he learned a valuable lesson because one of the themes that's been going on through this whole countdown and it came out a lot in the last 2 shows, which I loved, is the family aspect of it. And I think he realized what happens when you go against the family. Yep. So he felt the wrath. And he's kind of made his way back in my good graces. I thought he was so respectful of the Mara family. The story of being, at Mr. Mara's deathbed with his whole family there. I mean, he was obviously very moved to be thought of in that way. And so it was good to see that he's certainly developed that reverence and respect. And so okay, I will not badmouth Tiki anymore. So there you go, Tiki. I'm sure you're happy about that. So how about you, Lucas? Any Tiki memories?
Um, I think yeah. I
It
think
was the
he's
one
probably
jersey you had. That's right.
It
You said
was the
that like when
jersey
you
I
were
had.
about 3.
Yeah, I do. I've seen some couple pictures in that, but yeah, I mean, I don't think because of when he was played, I didn't really appreciate how awesome he was. I remember like that one Chiefs game where it was like him and Larry Johnson just going back and forth the
Yeah.
entire game. They both rushed like 200 yards in the same game.
That was last game of the season, wasn't it? I
It
think
was something. It was late in the
that
game,
year.
yeah, but it was
Yeah.
nuts
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
going back and forth. I always remember that game, but yeah, I never really appreciated how awesome he was, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely
I
everyone around
agree.
him on the all-time list or all-purpose yard list is all in the Hall of Fame. He also
Yeah.
should be in the Hall of Fame.
I think both him
Yeah.
and Roger Craig should be there too. Frankly,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Because
was the
Craig
first
was
Wolf
Tiki
guy.
before Tiki.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I
And I
think
always
Tiki,
love.
I would say I
Go
think
ahead.
Tiki held his own in that era of two-way players like Priest Holmes, Tiki. There's a couple of guys
Dane
that were like 3 or 4 that like where they were back when running backs were given the ball 30 times, 20 rushes, 10 catches, and tearing it up.
He's easily at least over a few seasons. So OBJ maybe at least in his best, but like in terms of fantasy football, a player people wanted to draft. We haven't had that many in my lifetime, right? Where you go,
Saquon was
hey, say again.
Saquon was up there.
Saquon. He was, but he didn't live up to it as much. Like Tiki was far more consistent.
Yeah.
For those last 4 years, he was unbelievable, and rare for a running back at the end of his career to have that kind of productivity. So, all right, we're gonna move along into the quarterback trio here. Not much to say, but I do want to mention a story about Charlie Connerly. So, do you know where Charlie Connerly went to college?
Is he a DMV guy?
A what?
Somewhere in the DMV, Maryland, Towson.
Nope. Nope. It actually ties back to Eli, believe it or not.
Ole Miss?
So Charlie Connerly went to Ole Miss, and he was a mega star at Ole Miss. And guess who was a big Ole Miss fan as a kid? Archie. So Archie was a Giants fan as a kid because Charlie Connerly played for the Giants. So just so you know, Archie's been a Giants fan long before Eli even existed. It's kind of funny.
Don't worry, only 2 more years, and a Manning will be under center again for us. Don't you worry.
I want a Perbula under center, but that's just maybe.
No, I'm no
biased,
offense to Bo, but I'm gonna take Arch.
All right. And I mean, Y.A. Tittle, at least, you know, who he was, never saw him play, but the stories are amazing. So I mean, I don't have much to say about Y.A., but let's talk about Mr. Sims. So give me again some thoughts on Mr. Sims, Steve.
Well, I mean, I still remember watching the announcement. Quarterback Phil Sims, Moorhead State.
Draft.
And I mean, you can see him; he's literally laughing about the pick. And then Sims got injured, and that turned the fans against him for the first couple of years. He had some elbow issues, and frankly, the first year or two that Parcells was with him, he didn't trust him. It took a little while for Bill to be like, "All right, it's yours. Do this." But I remember a dad talking about Phil Sims before other people were talking about Phil Sims. Like, I know everybody laughed when they drafted him, but this kid's got something. I can feel. He's like, it's been a long time since I've seen a Giants quarterback that I actually think is going to be good. Usually we get other people's retreads.
Yeah, what I remember about Sims, and I'm sure it's not completely accurate, but there's a lot of the way he made me feel that Eli did the same thing.
Yes.
Where you would get this absolute brilliance. We're like, man, this guy's unbelievable. And then you'd see something where you're like, what the hell was that? And so you just had to take the good with the bad with Phil. What I respected about Phil as I got to watch him more and then even listen to him as an analyst is how strong-willed he is. He's a tough guy. And just like Eli in a different way, but the same way, they could handle New York, right? They're the two quarterbacks I watched handle New York well, but a couple of funny little stories about Phil Sims. So back in the day in the old stadium, we got to know the people around us a lot more than we do now. Like there's no one whose kidneys we want to punch out in front of us in the old stadium. And there was this family, it was Arlene and Joe and their daughter Sandy. And they're the ones that sit kind of still next to us. Like Sandy and their kids, you've probably met them over the years. They're to our left and a couple rows up. But Arlene and Joe would get into knockdown, drag-out fights over Phil Sims.
Yep.
I thought they were going to get a divorce over it. He loved him. She hated him. And it was too funny. Every week, Sims throws an interception. She is in her husband's face about it. Sims throws a touchdown. He's coming back at her. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. But the other one, and this is one of my all-time favorites, and you guys have probably heard this story. So Grandpop's at the Super Bowl, right? He's there hours before the game, walking around the stadium, taking it in at the Rose Bowl. And he sees this blonde woman with a couple young kids. And he recognizes her as Phil Sims' wife. Now, have you guys heard this story, Lucas and Drew?
How he recognized her, I will never know. Who the hell knows
no, I remember how.
wives?
I remember how. Back in the day, they used to do United Way commercials together.
Oh, right.
They'd have the player and their wives, promoting a charity. So he kind of, Dad just had that kind of memory. And he was also bold enough that he goes up and starts talking to her. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? How's Phil feeling?" She's like, all the pressure's on Elway. He feels great. I think he's going to have the game of his life. This is what she says to him. Now he goes on. He goes 22 for 25 with 2 drops. You know the story.
Yeah.
The funnier part of the story, and this is where the two of you will really appreciate this. What do you think he did with that inside information?
He laid a bet down on it, I'm sure.
He called his bookie, man. He called his bookie.
I'm sure he laid something down.
And he put big money on the Giants. So, he had inside information. So anyway, I just figured you guys hadn't heard that story. Yeah. And I know you guys play in that world a little bit. So, but anyway, so that's just one of my favorites.
I would just pull it on my phone now and be like, all right, I'm hammering all of his player props. Every single one is a single game parlay. Lock it all in.
That's right.
Side note,
all right.
He was with the Giants for 6 years before he was their starter. Before he really took the reins. Another thing, he never had more than 22 touchdowns in a season.
Yeah.
He only had one 4,000-yard season, and he had 199 TDs with 157 receptions.
Yeah, and again, a lot of those are comparable to that era. What's funny is
it fits absolutely.
Marino did this bizarre thing where just had 48 touchdowns in 83, where the record was I think in the 30s.
Yeah.
But most guys didn't break 25 back then. Most. So it was pretty rare. All right, let's move down to the top 10. Andy Rosebustelli, I remember hearing about him. Great player, certainly deserving. Sam Huff. What I find interesting is that Carson's ahead of Huff. From a legendary perspective, and I love Harry Carson, I think there's a lot of people that have an issue with Sam Huff being below Harry Carson because he was our Dick Butkus. He was a linebacker's linebacker back in the day. You heard them talking about Landry coming up with schemes of how to stop Jim Brown using Sam Huff. So no offense to Harry, but I thought Huff could have been higher. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Steve?
Go ahead, Drew.
No, you're good.
Or Drew, yeah.
You got it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, Sam Huff is just one of those guys. When back when we used to watch the old NFL film stuff, his name was in every episode. But sooner or later, you were going to hear something about Sam Huff. He was legendary. There's maybe 10 people per decade that you hear about, and he was one of the ones from the 60s.
Now, the once a Giant, always a Giant, here's where maybe he got knocked down the list. He ended up going to the Redskins and then being a Redskins announcer. So maybe that's why, right?
And I believe he's also in their Ring of Honor.
Yeah, he is. You're right.
Dual Ring of Honor.
He's in both. He's in both. So
that's probably why.
All right, let's go to number 8, Eli. Number 8. Is that where Eli should be?
Well,
I believe.
Yeah. All right, Dion. All right, Dion.
It's the highest quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
So,
yep.
In regards to other people in the position, it tracks.
Yeah.
I think when you take down the greatest quarterback to ever live twice, I think you deserve that honor.
Yeah. What do you think, Lucas?
I mean, I thought he should have been top 3, but of course he was the Giants quarterback for the majority of my life. So it's a little different for me, but I mean, he finished top 10 in every major passing category when he retired.
You mean across the league? Yes, you're right. Yes,
so
statistically, yes.
All time. People will be like, "Oh, he has a 500 record." I was like, "Well, some of the teams they tried it out at the end of his career, he was fighting for his life."
Yeah. I can proudly say I went to his last game, and the reception, the reception that he got from the crowd, it would have gave you chills. Like him going off the final time, it was cool seeing the send off he got. But I think alone in that NFC Championship game against San Fran, I think that game alone, when he gets his Hall of Fame enshrinement, just replay that game and show the beating that man took in the balls to get up every single time and just go after a win. It just, that game, I try to watch that game now and then just to relive it. But that game
was a bad defense too, man. That defense was nasty.
That defense was unbelievable.
I mean, and I think what happened is after he won his Super Bowl, the second one, which is 12, right? He had 7 more seasons and didn't have a winning record for the last 7 years.
Which dampened his career.
Not all on him, not putting it all on him in any way. But that's just kind of like, if you go, like a lot of people, flavor of the month, you go 7 years without a playoff appearance, people are like, he must not have been that good. And it sort of taints the first 9 years of his career when he was damn good.
Well, what's funny
he was bad his first 3 years.
Lucas will remember. Lucas will remember this. So in 2007, Lucas and I are watching the Vikings game down in our basement, and Eli throws a pick six, and I'm like, I'm done with this guy, and I go upstairs, kind of annoyed, and I come back, and I mean it's 2 minutes later. And the Vikings are running another one in. And I go, are they showing a replay? Lucas is like, nope, he did it again. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I've had it with this guy. Like, forget it. And I was defending him so much up until then. So, like what's funny is if they, in that moment, felt like they had a reasonable backup and moved away from Eli, no one would have held them.
No,
like he could have been nobody. Like he was that close. Where if they're like luckily they were so invested in letting him play this out.
Yeah.
But just say Kurt Warner was still there, and they said, "Screw it, we're going to go with Warner the rest of the season and figure out what to do with Eli." He could have become nobody. Like he could.
What's interesting is their record for those 3 years: 5, 6, and 7. They were 11-5, 8-8, and 10-6. So they were winning. So it sort of gave them a longer leash.
Yeah, they even won the division.
Yeah. No, his best season as a team was 2008. Like that's the team that they had the best record. So and then Plexico shot himself.
Well, his best overall season is 2015 because their offense was awesome. They just didn't have a defense.
Yeah.
They would score 30 points and give 40 every game.
That's true.
So I'll give you my favorite Eli story from being at a game. So I was at the game that I think was his coming out party in terms of his comeback ability, right? And his cool under pressure, the Broncos game, where late in the game, were you there with me, Steve?
Nope, but I remember I was running to the grocery store and I had the game on the radio because I had Sirius at the time.
Yeah. What was cool about that game was the company I was at, the headquarters of the company was the building next to the Hilton across the street. And so I had finagled to have a meeting there on Monday morning, so I could have my hotel room paid for.
Travel.
I was set. So all I had to do, I didn't have to drive home. I just walked over to the hotel, went to bed after the game. It was awesome. So the next morning, because of where the hotel is, people that come in to watch the games stay there. So I get in the elevator, and I'm in business clothes, so it doesn't necessarily look like I'm a Giants fan. And there's this husband and wife in the elevator with me, and they're kind of in their 50s or so. And it turns out I could tell they flew in from Denver, and the wife is pissed. She's just so mad. And she says, I can't believe these people. They're claiming that was like John Elway to do that. And the husband looked at her and he goes, well, it kind of was. And I'm just sitting there snickering and loving it. So Yeah, that was a lot of fun watching Eli have that effect on other people because he drove other people crazy. That's for sure. All right, let's go to Mr. Carson. Harry. Uh, Harry was just such a stalwart. Like one of the things I didn't realize is that Marty Schottenheimer was one of our coaches and was part of getting him drafted. I mean, Marty was a genius, but I didn't really know he saw that kind of talent from, I think, was it South Carolina State? An HB, isn't that a historical black college?
Yep, HBCU.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that's impressive. And the fact that we would send him out by himself as the captain.
That was cool. That was cool. I remember that.
It was. Well, and what's funny though, Steve, is Harry talked about the stadium a lot, which again, I obviously have fond memories of that. But he even brought up NFC Championship game. So I know we've gone through this before a couple times.
The toilet paper going
at least,
through.
Oh my God!
Talk about what that environment was like for you as a fan to be in that stadium.
Like I said, I've never heard it be that consistently loud. Like I've watched a lot of games on TV and everything, and they talk about the noise and the advantage you have in the domes, and I'd never been to something that loud for that long because about halfway through the game, we knew what the outcome was going to be. We knew the Redskins were not doing a damn thing. So people were just screaming for like an hour and a half, hugging each other, high-fiving for an hour. Nobody's even watching the game for like the second half. Like, we know they can't throw in this wind. It's going to, and it was just, I was the young kid. I was only 15 or 16 at the time. So I'm watching all these people who had season tickets for like 20 years, like my dad who waited 15 years for something to cheer about. And they were just losing their damn minds. I was like, I don't even belong here. I feel like I should have given my ticket to somebody else. Seriously, because I don't get this yet. Because I'm only, like I said, 16. I don't know nothing about nothing. But that sort of set the benchmark. I was like, okay, now I know what a fan is. Because up until then, I always thought my dad was a little high-strung for a fan. I mean, the man during a game once took his glasses and snapped them in half. He once threw a coffee table out the window at halftime.
Yeah. And
when he was living in an apartment with my mom, threw the table out the window at halftime off the second floor, and against the Jets, and the Giants ended up winning the game. So then he just wasted the coffee table.
Yeah.
The man was not well.
The funny thing was, like Carson, remember, what's so funny is Harry Carson is the originator, even though it was Jim Burt's idea, of the Gatorade splash. And if Dad had the same superstition as Bill Parcells, he'd have thrown a coffee table out the window every game till they lost. Right? It would have been. It worked. They won. I
remember when he snapped his glasses, though. That was funny. He just goes snap, and I was like, I'm gonna go upstairs. Peace out.
Yeah, there was definitely and we had a vested interest in the Giants winning as children. I'll just say that. So.
And his inability to sit during the fourth quarters of games, standing up behind the couch with his arms like this.
That's definitely where I get it from. I'm the same way. I don't sit.
Nope.
Luckily, we were not with him when the Pisarcik fumble happened, the miracle of the Bengals, because I don't even want to know. Like, they were at a wedding. I think it was Bob McGinnis' wedding, and it became a funeral. Like, all the Giants fans were just distraught. So it had a bit of a negative effect on things. So, but yeah, Harry was definitely the man. Emlyn Tunnell, again, I didn't see him play, but just some of the stats about him are off the chain. I mean, the fact that he's still second all-time in interceptions is crazy.
Yeah.
So I just think that's although what's funny is when they were talking about how great that is compared to how little they throw now and all that, one little fact they didn't bring up. You could mug the heck out of a receiver the whole way down the field. Like every ball was basically a 50-50 ball. Like, because guys weren't getting away from you. You were clutching and grabbing, and so
I didn't know that he broke his neck before he ever even played in the NFL.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Broke his neck. That's crazy.
Yep. All right, let's go to Michael.
The gap.
I tell you, man, he was quite a player. Just loved watching him. Loved when he's mic'd up, running his mouth. So. What memories of Mr. Strahan? Anybody want to throw some out?
I guess
on the field stuff, off the field stuff,
calling the score shot in the Super Bowl, walking down the sidelines.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that clip
we need
all
one
the time.
Touchdown.
To be world champions.
Yeah. Yep, we need one touchdown. 17-13.
Well, I loved how Eli, though, gave him crap about that, right? Because he said,
just let him score.
I'm the quarterback. I'm going to, hey, if you stopped him, we wouldn't be like, Eli, I just think Eli, so he's so sneaky funny in the way he says things, and that just cracked me up. Michael, if you'd have stopped them. So, yeah, I mean, again, his story is crazy. You ever heard what his nickname was as a kid? It was,
I have
Bob.
Yeah.
You know what it is, Bob? Back. Booty on back. That's right. Because he didn't know why. He said, yeah, you could get your wallet just by doing this. Because he had a big rear end. So, yeah. But here's a story that'll give you the insight as to why he persevered. When he's in Germany as a kid, there was this bike that he wanted that was apparently like $1,000 bike, and he's like 10 years old. Or he might even been, I don't care, same around that age, and said to his dad, I want this bike. And his dad said, well, if you earn $500, I'll give you the other 500. So and $1,000 when he was doing this was a lot of money. And he worked his tail off cutting lawns and doing all this stuff and got that bike. And it was one of these things that showed him goals and hard work, so much so that he still has the bike and he will not let his children ride it.
That's awesome.
And it's his kid's bike. Like, he rides around on it. You see it. He's a giant man on this kid's bike. But yeah, and the fact that he played 1 year of high school.
Yeah.
1 year of high school ball. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. There's Mr. Gifford. Again, didn't see him play. My memories of him were Monday Night Football, right, as a kid, listening to him call the games. I do think he set the bar for great players making that transition. Like, good-looking guy, articulate and a great player. Because I think, I can't say for sure, but I think there were a lot of announcers that weren't necessarily great players. And he kind of took it to that level. And now there's, Tom Brady's and Tony Romo's and Greg Olson's, all these guys. But Gifford was the guy, I think, that really kind of set that bar. So, all right, one guy left, Drew. You got his jersey on. Let's talk about Mr. Taylor. I wish you guys could have saw him play. I'll just say that. Yeah. Because it was special.
The fact that me and Lucas can still, you say the name, and even I feel like non-sports related people know who Lawrence Taylor is. So it's like the impact that he left from his time playing until now just speaks the volumes of why he should have been number one. Yes, he might have been crazy off the field and all that stuff, but I mean, just the aura around the guy. He's like how, when folks talk about the stories of them bumping into Michael Jordan and seeing them in public and feeling like they're this godly person. They're not this like on-earth person. I feel like that's the same. And anybody I talk to that ever, I mean, I know the story of you guys bumping into him in the elevator.
Yeah, I'll tell it in a second here.
Yeah, my dad talks about it all the time. So,
because you were there, Steve, right? It was you, me, Pete, and Clarence, right?
Yep.
So the way that played out was we had the field passes. It was a Monday night game against the Colts. And I was the one that made the hotel reservation. So we got there. I jumped out to go in the lobby to check in. And those guys went to park. And I go in the lobby, and there's LT. And I'm like, ha, ha, ha. But he's kind of got people around him. And I'm like, I'm not walking up to LT, but I'm texting the guys. I'm like, LT's here. Get in here quick. Get in here quick. By the time they get there, he's gone. I thought I saw him get in a car and leave. So I thought he was gone. And then we check in. We go drop ourselves up in the room. We come down. We get to the ground floor. Doors open. And I felt like, when I think about it, it's almost like the way that the barbershop scene in Coming to America where he tells a story about Martin Luther King. I'm like, Dr. King! like that's Dr. King! So I thought you were somebody else. And we were like, LT! Like all four of us, I think, at one time.
The little kid came out in you.
Yeah, we all shook his hand. He was very gracious. But like I didn't have the consciousness to go, let's take a picture with Lawrence. Like it just felt like we're just going to shake his hand and that's going to be good enough.
You don't want to be a bother. But like I remember going, I'm the same size as Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
because he's about 6'5", about 260. Now the proportions are quite different. But on paper, I'm the same size as Lawrence Taylor. It's kind of weird. Just to look him in the eye was just sort of weird because he was bigger than life when I was a kid.
Yeah, and he was the guy like where we would fight over the binoculars. If they went on the field on defense, like we could give a crap when it was offense. When it was defense, it's like, no, I want the binoculars. No, I want them. Because, you guys remember the seats. When they're down the other end, it's hard to see. Yeah. And you would just watch him every play and just watch him, drive people crazy. And what's funny is it's changed my perspective on one guy that was number 37, I believe. The only other guy I've done that with is OBJ. I'm like, I need the binoculars. I'm going to watch Beckham. Like, so to be fair, he was as compelling to me offensively where I'm like, I got to watch him. But yeah, Lawrence was special. And just the stories of, him laying on the ground and, in the chalk talk and just telling Belichick from the ground, yeah, that's not going to work. Like, we're talking Bill Belichick here, right? Just absolutely brilliant. And the way that Parcells knew how to play him, knew how to just let him be who he was. And I don't know if you've ever heard the story where he talks about they're playing the Cardinals and LT is supposed to drop in coverage. And the play happens and he rushes and he sacks the quarterback. And he's coming off the field and Parcells is annoyed at him. Here, he just got a sack. And Parcells is like, he's like, what? Because you were supposed to be in coverage on that play. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, So same formation late in the game. He's supposed to drop in coverage. He sacks, fumble, recover, touchdown. That's what happens this time. So he comes on the field. Now Parcells is kind of grinning at him. He's like, I did it again, didn't I? He goes, we don't even have what you're doing. He goes, well, you better put it in because it's a dandy.
Yeah, I remember one time where apparently his paycheck got left in a cab in New York City. And someone made copies of it and brought it to a game, and it was floating around like people were looking at his paycheck.
Oh, I never heard that one. That's
at a game, and of course, Dad had a copy of it. He's like, "This is what this guy makes per week," and I was like, "It was." It was funny at the time. It was ludicrous. Now it's like, really?
Yeah.
It was something ridiculous, like $88,000 a week or something. That was just
Right.
Which is now it's per completion numbers for some of the quarterbacks out there.
Yeah. I try not to take for granted the fact that we got to watch him play. And that he's ours. He was number 3 all time when the NFL did their, top 100 of all time. So I think behind Jerry Rice and Jim Brown, it's a pretty good company. So, all right, let's go into our predictions now.
Oh boy.
So, and I don't want to walk through each game, but just give me your thoughts and give me a record. So I'll start with you, Steve, actually.
I'm going to go 7-10. But one of the things I've been paying attention the last couple of years, especially just because of my joy of the Vikings, is the value of one-score games. Like even last year, the Vikings were not good, and they still had 11 one-score games. They were just 5-6 in them instead of 14-0. And I think the Giants are going to lose a number of one-score games and be in them. I don't see them being the doormat this year. I see things kind of rounding into shape by the second half of the season, but ultimately being around 7-10, but with hope.
Yep. Nope. Okay. We'll go. Who wants to go next, Lucas or Drew? It's up to you guys.
I'll go.
Okay.
A record prediction. I'm gonna go 8-9.
Okay, we're getting one more win. Okay.
And now a lot of this bases on I think we have 2 very winnable games the first 2 games of the year. Sorry about the Vikings, but they are.
You're right.
So those are if we can start 2-0, that looks pretty good. But because so many of these years in the past 10 years, we just lose like the first 3-4 games and like season's already over. Yeah. So, but then 2 years ago, we won the first couple games, and it was like, oh, this worked out. So when you have that lull where you get run over a couple times, because every team, what happens to most teams, you can survive it, and then you're still there in December when it matters the most. So I'm going to go 8-9. It all depends on how far Daniel Jones can take us.
All right. I like that. All right. Optimistic Paco. What do you think?
I think I'm on the 7-10 train.
Okay.
I just think with us playing, you got the Ravens on the schedule again. You got the Steelers, Bengals, and Browns. That division is always tough. Um, I do think that the Commanders aren't going to be a walk in the park like they have been in the past. I think that this might be the first year we might see a split.
Nope. No, we own them. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna stand by it. That's two wins.
I'm gonna stand behind a rookie quarterback still. It's a tough gig, but
they still don't really have an offensive line. I have a lot of questions about their team that I don't. People are higher on them than I don't.
Hey, this is Drew's time, so 7 and 10. Okay.
But I agree with that. I agree with that assessment. But yeah, I think to that point, I think if we do get off to a clean start, I think that does help. There are a lot of winnable games in the second half of the season as well. I just feel like if we can make it through that tough spurt, if we could pull off, I think what always helps us in some seasons, and it kind of, if we can get that win in Seattle, that's always a big one for us. That's always a big confidence booster. Last time we did that, I think we went to the playoffs.
We've had some strange games in Seattle over the years, man.
Yeah,
some strange.
The McCoy game was the first one that comes to mind. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think 7 and 10. I mean, obviously, I do think 8 and 9 is doable, but I don't see anything over 500.
Okay.
Just one more thing. If we get to 4-4 after 8 games, I'll be pretty pleased with where we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That first stretch, the first stretch of games is
brutal.
After the first 2, it's pretty brutal after that.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, I'm in such a strange place because I could just as easily be a fool and say 9 and 8 or say 5 and 12.
Yeah, I mean,
it's that window though.
Yeah. But that's a one game thing.
But to your point, Steve, that's the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Bounces, calls, at the end of games when they're tight, 61-yard field goals, crazy.
Random injuries that just totally derail everything.
So I'll throw it out there. I'm just going to go 9 and 8. Something about this 100th season. Something about this. I do think that I'm foolish enough to think that there's something in this Daniel Jones kid that if they can just frickin' block for him, that there's a chance. And I'm really intrigued by our defense. I think there's something there. I think if we can stop the run and generate a pass rush without blitzing, that's good stuff. So
yeah, the front is going to rule the roost.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. All right, well, that's all I got for tonight. Anybody else got anything they want to close with? No?
Looking forward to Sunday. We'll be there.
Yeah. Right. Let's make it through this season with minimal injuries. That's my hope for the season.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been the most injured football team forever now, so just no injuries, please. That's all I pray for.
Yeah.
We will be there Sunday, and we'll see how it goes. First opening game for the three of us in a long time, and Paco will be thinking of you.
Yep.
All right.
Enjoy, fellas.
Peace.
See y'all.